What's good, everyone? This your main correspondent, Alan Taylor, and I'm back in the broadcast room. And this is what we get now. So we have this young lady in the broadcast room, and she's speaking on her trials and tribulations. Now, growing up, in the church, preacher's kids, stuff like that. My father's passed on now. But listen, look, this is the thing here. Um, a testimony is something that we all can gain knowledge from. And that's what it used to meant when you would get up in the congregation, stuff like that, and you would, give your testimony and stuff like that. But you know what I'm saying? Listen, look, this young lady has a testimony about the situation about food stamps and stuff like that, what she went through. So we're going to dive off into this. And like it's quarters, nickels, and dimes, people.
I used to be homeless. I used to sleep in alleys. In the wintertime, I was sleeping on church stairs. I shoplifted from stores so that I could have something to eat that day. I was declined day after day from shelters on a waiting list because I didn't have a child, so I wasn't priority.
Okay, but before I dive too deep, she did mention sleeping on church stairs. Now, shit. Growing up back in my day, like I said, I'm a preacher's kid. Churches used to actually help the community. They used to actually help the community. Like they would not allow, and I get it. Things work a little bit different for men than they do for women, but let's just stick to the program here. If it's a lady sleeping on the church steps out here,
so what the French toast is there to think about?
What is that? No, the church would not allow that. And I'm not saying that they wouldn't, actually help a man either. But yes, a lady sleeping on the church steps. Okay, let's keep going.
I didn't have warm clothes, and living in New Jersey, it was so cold. It was snowing outside, and I was literally wrapped in a blanket, sleeping in the snow. Many nights I thought I wasn't going to wake up the next morning, but I still got up the next day and I hustled and I went to the library. I picked up change off the ground so that I could be able to print out resumes and make me a resume. I went to the welfare office when I got my food stamps. They used to have a program where they would help you find a job. So that way you don't have to stay on government assistance. I don't know what's required of it now because I haven't had food stamps in many years. But at the time, that's what the requirement was. You had to try to get a job.
Now, okay, she said she hadn't had food stamps in many years and things like that. But at the time, though, too, when she was trying to get those resources and things like that, they did require you to have a job. And she said she did her due diligence to try to make sure that she, tried to get gainful employment, at least to some degree, to where she could still get the government assistance, but at the same time, too, worked enough to, appease the government to where they could give her government assistance. So nowadays, what Trump has just done, seems like, which I don't know what happened in between that time. I don't know how old this young lady is, things like that. I don't know how many years she's been off it. So, but to go here today, what Trump just did with the situation, he hasn't cut anything completely off. You have to put in 80 hours a month. That's 80 hours a month. That's nowhere near even the hours that I even work. I'm just being honest out here. That's nowhere near the 80 hours a month. Shit. You know what I'm saying? I work probably 100 hours a month or more. Like, shit. Listen, look. Yeah, probably more. But you know what I'm saying? Listen, look. The thing of this is 80 hours a month to qualify for government assistance. And this is the new rules and things like that. And it's like that's peanuts compared to real citizens out here that are working hard every day, 9 to 5s on these jobs, construction, food service, whatever, you know what I'm saying, things like that, that are working these actual jobs and that don't qualify for government assistance, because we are putting in 40, 50, 60 hours of a week.
I took advantage of every resource that I could find. I sat down with the welfare caseworker and I begged her to help me find anything that could help me get out of my situation. She sent me to work centers that would help with building my resume, and they would sit down and help me with interview skills. And every day I went to an interview. I spent my days sitting at the library and going to interviews. I started off with a few shitty jobs, worked my way up in those jobs, built my resume, and then started getting better jobs for myself. The point of me telling you all of this is because I am so fucking sick of people getting on the internet and talking about how desperately they need Medicaid and food stamps while they are able-bodied adults who can get the fuck up and get it for themselves. I was getting
Oh, she is snapping.
I was getting $7 an hour working at Payless, and I saved up every dollar so that I could afford me a down payment on an apartment in New Jersey. And I was 19, 20 years old at the time. Yeah, going through it. I struggled so hard every day that I was able to say this. I looked at myself and I said, when I get out of this situation, I will never go back. I'm just so sick of the excuses. Grown ass people getting on this app to talk and show how fucking lazy they are and how greedy they are and how entitled they are. That you feel every other American who is working really fucking hard to pay taxes and make a living for themselves should be funding your free life. No fucking way. I never wanted a handout from anybody. I worked so fucking hard to get where I am. I worked so fucking hard to never be homeless again. I remember at 20 years old, I walked into the mayor's office in New Jersey and I said, hey, I can't get into a shelter. Please help me. And the lady, the secretary, sat down with me and wrote me a letter to get me into an apartment because nobody would accept me. They had a program in New Jersey where you could get a one-time payment for I think it was $1,300 to get a down payment for an apartment, and I kept getting denied. I went everywhere, and I went back to that place almost every other week to keep begging them to give me this deposit. Now, I saved up majority of my deposit, and they basically just matched me. But that lady got me that deposit because I was so persistent. Y'all are just so fucking lazy.
Shout out to her. Yeah. Shout out to her. And, listen, look, these are facts. These are facts. She's speaking straight facts. And this is the dynamic that we're in. And I get it. A lot of people are, hating this rearrangement of the welfare system, things like that. But it had to happen at some point. Nothing's ever going to stay the same. And I wish people in today's society would actually start understanding that thought process, because we have, been diminished of, history and understanding the facts that history repeats itself, and also to times change. No. You're going to have to understand that, things change. We can't keep going down the same path that we've been going down and expecting different fucking results out here. It's just not going to happen. So this young lady had a great testimony. Shout out to her. And, I hope her message actually gets to the point that it needs to be, to the people that it needs to get to. Because listen, look, man, no, she went through a real testimony and she came out on the other end triumphant. And she did it through hard work, dedication, and motivation. and not even necessarily it may not even be necessarily outside motivation. It may be the motivation that you need to gather amongst yourself to know that you need to keep going. But you know, we live in a society nowadays to where it's just all over the place. Everybody's mind's fucked up. But you know what I'm saying, for the people that actually have logical thinking and actually want better for their lives, they're trying to do their best and things like that. That's the reason why the people like this are not the loudest. The individuals that actually, you know what I'm saying, are doing well and things like that, are trying to manifest their lives into a different degree of society and things like that. They're not the loudest because they're keeping their heads down and they're trying to do better about themselves. It's only the trash people that are the loudest out here because they got time to sit around and bullshit.
So what the French toast is there to think about?
But it is what it is, though. Shout out to all my subscribers. Mad love to y'all. If you're new to the channel, please hit that like, share, subscribe button. Make sure you ring that bell to be notified whenever I decide to post things. And like I always say,
and that, my friends, is the bottom line.
That, my friends, is the bottom line.